I'm a teacher and I am taking your favorite MMOs to school. Welcome to my series, MMOs for Mental Health. I am taking your favorite MMORPGs and grading them based on how beginner friendly and how mental health friendly they are. What is up, guys? Welcome in if you are new and welcome back if you're not. I am Glow, English teacher by day and mental health gamer by night. I play a variety of different games to help you know which ones are the best for your mental health. So let's get to class. Welcome back to the Caps Lock Institute of Wellness and General Fuckery. In case you're new here, let's dive into how I will be evaluating our newest student. So here's the deal. I am playing the first 20 hours of these games to get a good idea of the beginner experience and how beginner friendly it is. It is my decision what I do with that time, but I am trying to get the most authentic beginner experience that I can. In order to save time and to ensure the best player experience possible, I do spend time researching classes beforehand. Past this, any character customization counts as gameplay and is a part of the report card. When it comes to the actual report card, there are 9 overall categories plus 1 extra credit slot. Extra credit will be awarded at my discretion when I think that a game does something extraordinarily well. So not every game is going to get extra credit. The grading scale is probably familiar to a lot of you with the addition of the top grade, G. A G means the game did this almost perfectly. The scale goes down from there all the way to an F, fucking awful. That means they completely failed in this category. Each letter grade is awarded a number score, 6 for G, 5 for A, 4 for B, and so on. And in order to pass the Caps Lock Institute, the game must have a B or a 4 average or higher. For our first semester, I will be grading 5 MMOs to start. The students with the highest scores will go on to compete for valedictorian, where we will be grading in-game content. Now that that's taken care of, let's get started grading our next student, Final Fantasy XIV. I did play and grade this live on stream. I stream on Twitch every Sunday night and Wednesday morning, Korean Standard Time. So come on, drop by, say hi, and watch this series live. When evaluating a game's character builder, I am looking at how much customization is available and how diverse the options are. Right out of the gate in Final Fantasy XIV, it is already hard for me to get past the lack of body types and the usual sexist body typing you see in MMOs anyways. But a single class with only a male playable option, I was really not happy to see that. Once you get past that, things seem to get better. There are sliders to adjust your height and even your tail length if you're an aura like me. That is where the real customization ends, though. The options moving forward are few and far between if you're looking for something other than color customization. Your body types is locked, your facial features are limited, and as far as I could tell, there was only one textured hairstyle available. I gotta be honest, this is 2024, this is Squeenix, and I expected a little bit more. So when it comes to the character builder, Final Fantasy XIV is gonna get a C from me. Moving over to our accessibility options, I'm looking to see a variety of accessibility options that are easy to find and maybe even offered directly to the player. I had high hopes for such a mainstream game from a AAA studio. And those hopes were dashed. Finding the options is simple enough, but once you get there, you only have 2 options. That's it, 2. There is a colorblind adjustment and a visual noise option. I will say I was incredibly pleased with the inclusion of the visual noise. I've never seen anything quite like this in a game that I've played, and it seemed to do a great job of indicating what type of noise was happening, but not really from where the noise was coming, which seemed odd to me. I am personally not hard of hearing, and I'm not colorblind at any capacity, so I couldn't fully test these features out myself in terms of usefulness. If you've used them, I would love to hear what you think. While I did find the visual noise a very interesting addition, I was mostly just shocked by the astounding lack of accessibility options in this game. So it's another C from me here. Our next category, low community toxicity, is pretty self-explanatory. How bad is the community and how do they treat beginners in the game? Unless you are brand new to the internet and gaming, there's no doubt you've heard about critically acclaimed MMORPG Final Fantasy XIV with a free trial up to level whatever it is now. The folks who play this game love it, and they want you to love it too. I can say for certain I definitely felt that community while I was playing. For the most part, people coming into my chat were more than happy to help answer questions or run dungeons with me. I even had my own personal Uber most days to help me progress even faster. In these 20 hours of playing, the community was by far one of the most positive I have ever experienced in an online game. What I did have a small issue with was the amount of people expecting me to know how to play this game like a veteran player, despite my beginner status. On multiple occasions, I had people coming into my chat asking me why I wasn't playing on controller, why I wasn't using this setting, why my hotbars looked like this, why was I doing this instead of that? And as a beginner player, I felt berated. I felt like I was doing something wrong, even though the game didn't tell me about these settings, what they were, or how to change them. These instances were the only type of negativity that I experienced in these first 20 hours of the game, which I think is great, but it did knock this category down from a G to an A for me. This brings us to our next category, the mechanics. MMOs are notorious for having complicated, sometimes even confusing user interfaces and game mechanics, and Square Enix apparently took that as a personal challenge to be the best at it, or should I say the worst at it. Never in my life have I played a game with controls that felt quite so clunky and confusing. Nothing felt streamlined. Most of it didn't even seem logical. And it seemed like some of it was even an afterthought. There are multiple skill bars, and the game sort of just plunks your abilities onto them without any care as soon as you get them. The bars are easy to rearrange, which is great until you accidentally move shit around mid-battle. Luckily, there is a lock button. Just make sure you don't accidentally press it in game too. Beyond the skill bars, there are numerous menus on the bottom of your screen, which open up even more menus. And pay attention to what you're doing, because there are 2 areas of the screen where your quests will show up. A personal pet peeve of mine was that the map couldn't be pulled up with tab, only M, but I let that one slide because at least it made sense. When it came down to actually playing the game and being able to play the game, I eventually gave in and purchased an MMO mouse, because otherwise the game felt almost unplayable to me. With all of that in mind, I think it feels generous to give Final Fantasy XIV a D here. For our next category, I want to talk about consequences. With any game, it makes sense for there to be consequences if a player makes a mistake. What I'm looking at here is exactly how high stakes these consequences are in the very beginning of the game. In these first 20 hours, players may still be learning mechanics and getting used to controls, so if the consequences are too high stakes, it can be detrimental to gameplay and impact the enjoyment the player has. Overall, I think Final Fantasy XIV does a good job with this. In my experience, if you die in the field, there is no permadeath or loss of experience or gear. If you're in a party, your party members can even revive you right where you died to keep on fighting. Sadly, however, if you are playing alone and die mid-battle, your only option seems to be reviving at your home aetheryte. Not the closest one, not the one you used last, your home aetheryte. If you have the same bad luck as me, this means you now have to trek across the entire continent just to get back to where you were. While I do appreciate there's nothing worse that happens, I wish it was a little more forgiving for beginner players and placed them a bit closer to where they actually died. For that reason, it gets a B. I might hurt some feelings here. I know Final Fantasy is a beloved game with an almost cult-like following. I have heard time and time and time and time again just how great of a game this is and how interesting the story is. And all I have to say is where's the story? Where is it? I have played 20 hours of this game, which in the grand scheme of things isn't a long time, right? But that's still a good amount to dedicate to the beginning of the game. And there's technically been story, I guess, but I can't say that I found it really particularly interesting or engaging. And it certainly doesn't justify to me the cost of a monthly subscription to continue playing this game to get to where it gets good. Like, I get it. There's a war that just finished. We're a warrior of light. We're here to save Eorzea or whatever. Pretty typical Final Fantasy stuff. But I couldn't get more than that in 20 hours. They couldn't give me more than that in 20 hours. But it's not even just that. Beyond the story just not capturing my attention, I also had a hard time feeling involved in the combat. For an action role-playing game, I was mostly left wondering, where is that action? Battles can be fought standing completely still and just alternating a few skills. Occasionally, you might need to dodge an AoE attack highlighted by a circle or a cone shape. I found myself hopping and running around just for fun to get myself engaged, but it wasn't necessary at all. This might be a hot take, but I personally think I would have enjoyed this game more if it had been a classic turn-based RPG. And of course, I can't talk about my interest in this game without mentioning the seamless, never-ending amount of written dialogue. In over 20 years of playing games, I have never played a game with so much dialogue. I would be mid-cutscene when the voice acting would simply stop, and the game would throw line after line after line after line of dialogue for me to read. There was a point that I tried to read it all, but after a while, I gave up. I'm pretty sure I read an entire novel just playing this game for 20 hours. There was one instance where I was stuck in a cutscene with only written dialogue for over 10 minutes. And if you ask me, that is absurd. Between the lackluster plot, the missing action, and the wild amounts of dialogue, when it comes to maintaining interest, Final Fantasy gets an F for me. If I hadn't been playing this for this series, I would have quit well before reaching 20 hours, simply out of boredom. For low grindability, I'm taking a look at how often a beginner has to go through content in order to get the gear they need to succeed. And I think Final Fantasy XIV does a really great job of this. In early game, I was able to complete dungeons just one time and get exactly the gear I needed to keep up pace with the fights that I was encountering. I didn't have to grind any dungeons multiple times to get full gear sets, and I was able to unlock glamour in this first 20 hours so I could wear my highest level gear while keeping the look of my favorite set. I really appreciate this, and I was shocked it was so possible so early in the game. They really succeeded in making the game keep up with the player, at least here in the beginning. And that's why Final Fantasy gets a G in this category. Speaking of dungeons, let's talk about how difficult they are. I like to see an MMO that is a little challenging, but not too difficult. Final Fantasy XIV mainly does a good job of this, spreading monsters throughout the world based on level and then throwing the larger ones at you in dungeons. If anything, I would say early in the game, it might be too easy. There was only one time I felt like I was having even the slightest difficulty in combat, and I think that had more to do with me struggling to manage the bazillion hotbar options than the enemies themselves. What I would have loved to see was difficulty options when it came to the dungeons. Each dungeon at this stage comes in one flavor. Normal, I guess. I would have loved to see an easy or a hard mode with the option to unlock different gear. This lack of options and difficulty, I think, played a key role in my enjoyment in the game, which is why I am giving it a C. Next up, when evaluating the soundtrack of a game, I'm really just looking for some good, continuous background noise and some killer battle themes. Final Fantasy definitely delivers when it comes to quality music, especially when it comes to the boss fights. The ambient music and sounds while wandering around the world are relaxing and immersive, and the city themes really fit each location. After almost 40 years of Final Fantasy games, I've come to expect nothing less than the best. Which is why it was an absolute shock when I would be wandering around exploring and the music would simply stop, cease to exist, I would be left alone with my own thoughts. This is not something I would expect from a Final Fantasy game, and it was quite frankly jarring every single time it happened. The only saving grace here was the continuous loop of the Chocobo song every time I was riding around instead of walking. I absolutely adore this theme in every Final Fantasy I've ever played. That alone saved the grade, I think, which left us with a B. Finally, we've made it to our extra credit category. Not every game will get extra credit. I award this when a game does something exceptionally well, or maybe even exceptionally bad. So, does Final Fantasy have what it takes to get extra credit? And I think so. You might be surprised. Final Fantasy has a system in place that I have never personally experienced in an MMO, and I think it is so cool. I have never seen anything quite like it. I think the mentor system in Final Fantasy XIV is awesome, and I think it contributes to the low toxicity in the community and is likely even a big part of why so many people are able to make it through the trenches of this early game hell. It's such a unique system, and I think they did a great job with it. In Final Fantasy, there are experienced and successful players who can be designated as mentors. These players are designated by a golden crown icon, and they're there to simply help out beginners in the game. The mentors I ran into were willing to offer advice, help with raids, and even helped me with fates I normally would have avoided, and got me my first real pet in the game. Starting a new MMO can be daunting, so I absolutely love that Final Fantasy XIV has a built-in system in place to help beginner players feel more welcome and successful. I did not even know about this system until this playthrough of this game. I really wish that it was better advertised, or maybe even that new players, also called Sprouts, had a chance to get matched up with a mentor of their own if they so choose. It's possible that new players don't even know the system is a thing, and they could be missing out on key beneficial help from these amazing mentors. Overall, I still think it's a really great system, and for it, Final Fantasy gets an A in extra credit. So, after all of that, does critically acclaimed MMORPG Final Fantasy XIV pass the class? If we average up all of the grades, they get a 3.6, which is a C+. And that is just barely missing the mark for a passing grade from the Caps Lock Institute. But who knows? Maybe they still could end up in the top 2 students and go on for a shot at valedictorian. I know this game is loved by so many, but after trudging through the beginning of this game, I am just left wondering how you got that far. What I have heard from almost every Final Fantasy XIV player that I know or that I came across during this playthrough is that you just have to keep going to get to the good part. Let me know if you agree, and let me know what you think about this report card. I asked my community to vote for our next student, and this one came as a surprise for me. Next up, we will be grading Maple Story. Let me know in the comments what grade you think Maple Story will get. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. If you have anything to say, make sure you leave a comment down below as well, if you so please. I'll see you guys in my next Twitch stream. See ya.